Welcome back to Take Two, presented by LeftRightPolitics.com, a discussion of the times, current events, and politics. I'm joined as always by Adam Matlack and Mike Pomerantz. Today I'd like your take on mail-in voting and the current push for absentee ballots in several states.
So with COVID-19 going on, we've talked about it, there's a lot to kind of discuss about the changes that need to happen socially and how we interact. Voting is one of these things. You walk into a booth, you touch the same stuff. There's sanitary concerns. There's all sorts of issues. This is stuff we need to be concerned about at all times moving forward. Should have been concerned about it in the past. Weren't really concerned about it, but now we apparently are. Now it's a very big issue. There's a lot of people who say, "Oh, look, we can fix this by mail-in voting," and there's states that do this. I think it's Oregon or Washington, maybe both of them, that have some of the highest turnout rates. They make it easy. I'm somewhere in the middle here in terms of what I believe should happen. I do not trust the government to secure our current elections. So I don't think that it's that great of a system or that locked up, secure, tight system that's in place now. I view mail-in voting in mass as a way to add an attack vector to an already problematic situation. This goes deeper too. This is voter ID stuff where people talk about, should you have a voter ID card? Should you have to present your ID? I'm 100% okay with asking somebody to identify who they are. When I get pulled over, I'm asked to show that and have to present it. I don't have any issue asking somebody to do that when they're voting, given how important it is or how important I'm told it is. At the end of the day here, we need to be conscious and clear with people about what is optional for people to do. I think the middle of the road assessment would be to allow older people to do this and not younger. But if even that I'm concerned with, because it's like I was saying earlier off camera, the fraud levels are already off the charts. And it's just interesting to me. It just seems like everybody's talking about Russia hacking the election. And now it's interesting. Oh, well, as long as those votes are getting tallied for my people, I'm okay with it. And it's just an interesting situation. I mean, I heard a lot about securing our elections in 2018. I'm not hearing anything about that now. And so I think they go hand in hand. And the question is, if mail-in voting happens, for me, the question is, if mail-in voting happens, is this something that's acceptable? The likelihood of fraud that's probably, in my opinion, going to be perpetrated through this means, to me, instantly, my immediate response is no.
It's a fascinating conversation. It implicates so much of our ideals, of how we want to live, and the greatest thing that this country has, which is the peaceful transfer of power on a regular basis. I hear what you're saying about the attack vector, and that is not an argument that I'm hearing in the mainstream media or even in, way out left or way out right that I'm trying to keep an eye on. And that is you're increasing by a noticeable, statistically significant amount the possibility that something terrible could happen, or that a lot of terrible things could happen. I get that. What I do want to respond to a little bit is this idea of you're not hearing about securing the elections. And I thought, wait a minute, I've heard all my favorites, all my stars in the Democratic majority in the House saying how they've added election security to these bills that they're passing, some of which more performative. They're never going to get past the Senate. It's like this most recent one. But I realize that's not in contradiction to what you're saying. When they talk about making the election secure, in this instance, they're talking about from a health standpoint, as opposed to from a count the right amount of votes standpoint. So that is indicative of a changed priority. In other words, and I don't know how or when this happened, but there was a movement from pivoting away from the idea that the election numbers could be tampered with towards, if people go to voting places, they could get sick and die. Both are security concerns. One is a health and safety concern. One is a dire political concern that I do not wish to minimize. But, and maybe this is, Adam, you tell me, if this is me just spouting orthodoxy that I've been like force fed over the past several months, I trust your BS meter to sniff it out. But all I hear about is how Republicans want fewer voters because the demographics of this country favor a Democratic majority, and therefore it's more likely that the more people who vote, the more Democratic votes that will be cast, and the greater the chance that Biden becomes president. So against that backdrop, and really in any circumstance, and I mentioned this before, my mom's a very disabled person, older person. She should get to vote by mail. She does vote by mail every year. But I would hope that increased participation would be something that both sides would want. Now, maybe I am victimized by my own party's talking points, and there is no desire for lower turnout on the right. And if that's true, then shame on me, and I've been misreading what I'm getting out of my echo chamber. But how can you not want more people to vote? How can you not, especially if your credo in part is personal responsibility? And one of the things you said before we started, which I love, and I want to bring it back up and get you to talk a little bit more about it, is you should have to do something. There should be some effort. I would argue with you about the effort of filling out a form or going to a website that's secure. But in other words, I think there's effort in that too. But there should be some active participatory conduct in which the person must engage to make them more invested in their choice and invested in their government. So if that is something like that you seek, then you want more people to be part of that. And I think for people to just say, I'm too sick, or it's too dangerous out there with this whole COVID craziness, I think that puts us in a very dangerous position of suppressing the vote and of getting people to be as apathetic as possible, especially people who are like not plugged in like you and I are, not watching all the politics and the news and the polls. I think it's important for those people who don't think about this all the time to go and be like, oh, the vote's coming up. I better figure out what's going on with these idiots, see who I want to vote for. And I realize your point. I can't argue with it. It increases the statistical probability that there could be a problem, but still, you can't suppress the vote. I want as many people to vote as possible, even if they go against my guide. That's true every year. That's true every time. I don't think these words will come back to haunt me.
Okay, the three things there. So the first thing is Karl Rove still exists. So that means that, yes, there are people on the right that want to suppress the vote. I don't think that that's when somebody is a politician who is about winning elections, they sit there and look at who to target, how to mobilize, how to disenfranchise, even potentially. There's a lot less of it than what you think. It's talked about and exacerbated in the idea of, it's hammered over and over again. It's just not true. Like, it is difficult to en masse suppress voters. You want to know what the most suppressive thing in voter turnout is? The weather. The weather, no doubt about it. And it's not even close. Look, people are already apathetic. You want to know how to suppress the vote? Put two lame ducks up for election and see how crap the vote is. I mean, which is what we're about to see, by the way. Look, I mean, people do not care. The people, you either care a whole lot, too much, where it's like affecting your life. I mean, I met people who were like, they had to take off work the day after the election in 2016 because they were so distraught. I got to tell you something. That's a bad attitude to have. We talk about this stuff as though it's into life. It's not. Like Trump has not ruined your life. Even 3 years in, he has not ruined your life. Like he's not a great president. He's a pretty bad president. But he's not ruined your life. Okay, like I'm sorry. You need to step back and realize some of this stuff is not, life or death. I personally am at a crossroads here when I'm talking about this because it's really, I view the American electorate as two kind of people who are just, we're going to, I don't really care who wins, essentially. I view that the Republicans are in a like family Volkswagen from 1974, and the Democrats are driving a Lamborghini that has a lien against it, and they're going 400 miles an hour. They're maxing it out as fast as they can. And the Republicans, they're in that 78, pickup. They're just going, they're speeding up. They're definitely speeding, right? They're breaking the law, but they're not quite going. But they're going to the exact same place, which is this cliff, this proverbial cliff where it's just, more control, more printing of money, disastrous behavior. I mean, over and over again. And one's going to get you there faster. So in some ways, I'm like, well, if we're going to burn it down, if we're going to destroy it all, might as well make it quick. All right. And then in others is like, well, maybe we should just slog along here and just keep making bad decisions at a little bit lesser rate. So it's just kind of one of those things for me. Do I want the vote? Do I want the question going back to, do I want more people to vote? I'm not sure. I know a lot of people who I don't want to watch my kid. And if they're not fit to watch my kid, I don't necessarily want their take or control on what my kid gets to do. So the idea here of, should we do everything to make it easy? I don't think so. I'm with you. You alert to it, kind of said, should you have to do something? I agree going to a website, do something. But let's talk about that for a second, because there's attack vector there too, right? And it's not just the website, not just the electronic stuff. There's attack vectors all over the place. But the biggest one is that if you can vote, if everybody can do an absentee ballot, I promise you something right now, that there will be entire coalitions that will literally farm people in, be like, look, we'll give you X, Y, and Z if you come here and fill out the thing, and we'll ship it for you, and we'll advise you for it. And then so what happens now? Then they're like, oh my God, there's these farming places that are telling people what to do, or handing them filled out ballots, or all these things, because that's the next thing. I mean, let's just be honest. That's going to happen regardless. You are not allowed to advertise or whatever within, 100 yards of the election place. All that goes out the window if everybody's voting electronically or whatever. So, it's mob rule as soon as the apathy kicks to vote buying or voter manipulation or beyond, which might already readily be there. It literally will be this disastrous mob rule. And we've seen how it ends. If you look at history, if you look at France, mob rule is not a good thing. It's not something we want. It's not an outcome where anybody should be excited for. Yet it seems like the mob is the slow, crawl towards. And here we are. So if you want to rebut, you can.
Is there a possibility, and I mean realistic, not fanciful or hypothetical, but is there a realistic possibility, even in this totally screwed up, divided country of ours, where safeguards could be built in? In other words, I don't even understand in-person voting. And what I do is I go in, There's a book. It's the weirdest thing. It's a spiral notebook. It's got my name upside down, and then I sign my name right side up, and they look at it. It's like, oh, they look the same. And then they send me into the booth and I vote. And I don't know how that becomes anything. Like, it would seem to me that even in that instance, there's a non-zero possibility of messing around with stuff. Let's say there's some rogue agent at a big polling place where it's going to be super close, whether it's Pennsylvania or up in the Midwest, whatever. I feel like there's so many risks across the board, and it's all so important that it wouldn't be crazy to try and build in some safeguards on the mail-in voting. In other words, rather than my friends at the Democratic committee sending me a form and they're just like, just sign your name, don't read it, don't look at it, it's all good, trust us, and send it back. I think that's not a good idea. I think I should have to make my choices in some way, shape, form, or fashion and take responsibility for those as opposed to just rubber stamping it. So, but I think thoughtful people like you could help if you think it's a possibility. So that's why I ask you the question.
You definitely can technically achieve a way to electronically secure the voting system. There's no question about it. It's achievable from a technical standpoint, absolutely. And so you have forward and back propagation is what's required there to make sure everybody should be able to check their vote, and everybody should be able to see that their vote was counted the way it should count, the way they did. That way, and you can't do that now. Right now, you're trusting a group of democratically kind of nominated people at local places, and it literally is the procedure of each state that determines how they go about the voting count. And it's pretty good. I want to be clear. Like, the way we do voting is actually pretty good right now. It's not great. It's not amazing. I'm not sitting here saying there's not problems. I'm not sitting here saying there's not fraud. All those things take place, but it's in very small scales. Okay. It's not something that's overt and people are, because, and here's how I know: conspiracies do not work. They do not last in the darkness very long. Somebody always flirts. If it was going on, we would know about it. Okay. There would be a lot of it. Now, are there people who aren't qualified to voting? Yes. Are there people who shouldn't be voting? Yes. Are there people who don't have legal standing to vote? By all means, yes, of course they are. Anybody who says that's not happening is absolutely bonkers out of their mind. Of course that's happening. Everybody, I mean, I literally know 2 people who are dead who got a stimulus check. Okay. You're telling me it's the same government who's overseeing the elections and telling us what to do and all these things. They're sending deceased. It literally said deceased in the byline of the message on the check. DEC stands for deceased. Okay. And so look, these people in charge, not very good. Could it be done? Yes. Is it going to be something that happens quick? No, nothing in this system happens fast. Anything that does goes terribly wrong. Healthcare.gov is a perfect example of a $290 million mistake. I mean, it's just, from a technical standpoint, yeah, it can be done. Is it ever going to be? Probably not. Look, this is the quintessential argument, and we're not going to talk about it now, but later I think it's something we probably should go over, which is the idea of like that one thing where, man, we need people to care and to be invested in it and to care about politics. And the moment people don't is the moment everything kind of falls apart. And I think we're getting to that apex now. We're getting to the point where less and less great people are interested. And I think Justin Amish is a perfect example. He's like, oh, you know what? I like my life. I'm going to go back to it. And so, I mean, here we are. And, hopefully we can care more about it. Personally, I'm in that boat because I've been there where I'm like, I'm not going to care. Hopefully we can collectively come together as a nation and care more about each other and care more about this thing and be less divided. I don't know if that happens soon or, probably not. before the guillotines come, right?
Yeah.
But after the guillotines, everybody will act a lot nicer after the guillotines once we off the cliff. So we have that to look forward to.
All right, thank you both for your thoughts. That's all the time we have today. If you enjoyed our discussion, be sure to like and subscribe below, and we'd love to hear from you in the comments section. Thanks again. We hope you join us for the next edition of Take Two, presented by leftrightpolitics.com.